This is AP Lit, and did I mention these three references? So turn to chapter 9, I believe it is. Yeah, it's the last sentence of chapter 9. I think I mentioned this, but all right, the red sun. All right, the red sun was pasted in the sky like a wafer. We've talked about that, right? Everybody knows why that's important. Turn to page 97, chapter 16. This is moments after he was a hero. Look at the last sentence. A cloud of dark smoke as from smoldering ruins went up toward the sun, now bright and gay in the blue enameled sky. Contrast those two suns. Red sky, like a wafer, the communion wafer, death of Jim Conklin. Bright sun in a blue sky after Jim Henry had become a hero. And then finally, last page, last line of the entire book, page 130, over the river a golden ray of sun came through the host of leaden rain clouds. He was now analyzing. He's kind of getting things together. He's putting things together about his own heroism, the death of Jim, his desertion of the tattered soldier, and at the very end, it uses that same image of the sun. It's a slightly different from the other two. This one is a golden ray of sun after the rain. It had rained, and the other was dark smoke in there. So you see how the author uses the setting to emphasize the emotional, even the physical reality on the ground. So he uses that to emphasize, to symbolize. All right, so let's go back to chapter, let's see, 18? Okay, chapter 18. We talked about the day he was a hero and what he did. Remember, he went forward instead of backwards, and I think this is important. If you can prove otherwise, it's not that my interpretation is the only one, but I can support it. That's the great thing about what we do here, is that you come up with an idea about a book. All you have to do is make a case for it. That's what we're looking for. That's what they're looking for. It doesn't mean that it's exactly like mine, but you're making a case for it. So what is our case? What are we saying ultimately drove Jim Henry to become a hero? It's consistent with everything that's in the book, consistent with the author's worldview. What did we say? It's got to be a part of your thinking. Do you remember? Anybody remember? Max, remember?
The death of Jim.
Definitely. What did that do for her?
Made him angry at the enemy.
For the right, he finally has the right reason for being a soldier. You got to kill the enemy. You got to defeat him. But in this particular moment, that was sort of in the back of his mind, although it's a part of it. What was on his mind as they were charging, and he decided to fight back? Do you remember what we said was on his mind? I want to point this out. It's on the first page. It's 16, probably 17. It's 17. All right, first chapter 17, page 93. He says, somebody said, he didn't say it, but somebody said, if they keep on chasing us, they'll drive us into the river. And earlier he said he was not going to be badgered of his life like a kitten chased by boys, he said. It was not well to drive men into final corners. At those moments, they could all develop teeth and claws. So what's on his mind at that moment? For doing what? Not killing Jim. That's in the back of his mind. But what's right in the forefront of his mind? He said, I'm tired of this. They keep pushing, and I want some rest. I want to get away. I want to rest, and these guys won't let me. So I'm going to have to punish them for it. You know, those are my words, but that seems to be what's in his mind. He finally gets tired of getting pushed around, so he fights back. And of course, again, ironically, which direction does he move today, 24 hours later? He's not just staying still. He's moving. He's always moving one way or the other. What direction is he moving? Come on, you're going to see it today in a minute. He moves forward. Yesterday he ran away. Today, unconsciously or subconsciously, he's moving in against the enemy, and it's a foolish thing to do, but it shows you that he's done a 180, right? All right, so chapter 18. This is the chapter that I titled Mule Drivers. We only have 6 chapters left here, so we'll do this. Try to do this quickly. I'll keep an eye on the time. We may not finish the movie. We can finish it later. We'll watch a good hour of it. It's not that long. It's not more than an hour and a half. We don't have all that much time. All right, so this is what I call mule drivers. What did that have to do with the story? He's overcome his personal weakness and his personal cowardice. He's a hero. But now the focus changes. Tell me about the mule drivers. Yes.
Is that like what Henry and Wilson overhear when
Yes.
the lieutenants or officers are talking about their 304th Regiment and saying that they would be fine with letting that regiment go because they weren't really worth anything?
Right.
This is just after Henry's confident in himself.
All right, did you hear that? So how does that mark a change in the story? John, how does that mark a change here? John, how does that mark a change? What change does that mark? Remember, before he was concerned about himself, he overcame that. Now what's he concerned about? Who winning? He's not that far yet. He's not that into it. What is the next thing? He won his personal battle, but now who is he concerned about? Not the Union, but who? You kind of said it. His regiment, the guys around him. Now he's not worried about what does he look like. It's like, what do we look like? It's like Huck to Jim. They're after us. So this is a change in the right direction. He's now becoming less selfish. In fact, notice he's with Wilson when he does it. So he's not alone. They're together. They have this information together. Interesting enough, they don't share it. Why do you think he doesn't share it? It would discourage him. So he's already thinking about them, us, not me. And so that's very important that you include that in your discussion of his growth. And look at chapter 19. This is the charge. This gets a little complicated. We don't have to be picky about it. We don't want to get it right. So this is the first time the unit is charged. So that's kind of significant. Henry did his little thing earlier, but now the unit is charging. They're no longer defending. They're no longer running. Now you see things are heading in the right direction, and they do charge, and this is when and the correct answer, of course, was he got the regimental flag, the flag of the United States, which was also their regimental flag. And then the later event takes place. Wilson takes the enemy flag. But we talked about why is that now a significant thing, that he's leading them as the color bearer. And he tries to rally them. So what are we seeing now, Elizabeth? How is he changing?
Instead of staying back and not even wanting to fight, he's the one leading the fighting.
And not only is he leading by example, he's literally in front. What else is he doing? He's verbally encouraging them. yesterday, again, he was running. Now he's encouraging them to move forward. Look on page 103. But there was a frenzy made from this furious rush. Everybody got that? The men pitching forward insanely had burst into cheering, mob-like, barbaric, but turned in strange keys that can arouse the dullard and the stoic. It made a mad enthusiasm that it seemed would be incapable of checking itself before granite and brass. There was the delirium that encounters despair and death, and is heedless and blind to the odds. It is temporary but sublime absence of selfishness. Circle that. That's what's beginning to happen to him and to these other men. So they're no longer thinking about themselves. He's trying to rally them. He's able to get the flag. And it's on page 106. And you mentioned earlier, somebody mentioned the Union. Look on page 106. With him, as he hurled himself forward, look at the one prior to that. It says, the youth ran like a madman to reach before a bullet could discover him. He ducked his head low like a football player. I believe that's the first time, and I don't think they mean soccer. American football, gosh, maybe they do. I don't know. This is 18. He's writing it in 1898. So I think, I don't really know the earliest dates of football. They're certainly later than baseball. Baseball was before the Civil War. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting comparison. But in the next one, he's carrying the flag. He was born a despairing fondness for this flag. This is the next paragraph. And these are things I'm pointing out so you can use them. So you can actually put them in your paper to support what you're saying. A fondness for this flag, which was near him. It was a creation of beauty and invulnerability. It was a goddess, radiant, that blended its form with imperious gesture to him. It was a woman, white and red, hating and loving, that called with voice of hope. So he's moved quickly from his regimental, now he's concerned about the guys around him, to now the country as a whole. He now thinks this kind of abstract thing of America. It's become real for him. All right, so chapter 20, they retreat, and it really bothers him. Again, look how he's changed. So you don't have to say all this, but if you say it, you need to get it right. You need to make sure that your facts line up with the book. And so they retreat, and he's really upset about it. And that's this chapter. And then chapter 21, I would call this, the veterans mock them. That was, to me, one of the chief things. So even despite what they've done, they're still mocked at. Their little battle was not as big as they thought. So they're all kind of exaggerating their efforts, and they lost men, and they did this great thing, and yet it's not as big as they thought. These other guys, hey, the real battle's over there. I don't know what you're doing here, and so they were mocking them. Chapter 22, almost done. Look at the first sentence. When the woods began again to pour forth the dark-hued masses of the enemy, the youth felt serene self-confidence. I think in the author's view, I don't think you would disagree that success is going to require you having some degree of self-confidence. Not overconfidence, not arrogance, but if you don't have some sort of self-confidence, I don't know that either you or I would ever make anything of ourselves. We've got to have a healthy self-confidence. And so he's that, plus he has a larger view of battle. And the regiment, I won't go into a lot of detail, 119, the regiment at the bottom of the page, at sight of this danger, look at it. 119 bottom, at the sight of this danger, men suddenly ceased their cursing monotone. There was an instant of stunned silence before they threw up their rifles and fired a pumping volley into the foes. There had been no order given the men. Upon recognizing the menace, had immediately let drive their flocks of bullets without waiting for word of command. So how is the unit changing? Now what do they recognize? What are they able to do?
Know when they need to progress and shoot.
They know when it's time to shoot. They know the enemy's there. They can make these decisions. They've matured as a unit as well as he has. Oh, yeah. Look at 120. The paragraph, the youth had resolved not to budge, whatever should happen. Some arrows of scorn had been buried themselves in his heart, had generated strange and unspeakable hatred. It was clear to him that his final and absolute revenge, now think about this, think about how much he's grown since yesterday. The absolute revenge was to be achieved by his dead body lying torn and gluttering, that's an interesting word, upon the field. This was to be a poignant retaliation upon the officers who had said mule drivers and later mud diggers. So yesterday he ran because he was afraid to die. Today he wants to die in order to show people that we weren't mule drivers or mud diggers. One point, and yeah, this is it. The next page, this is next to the last chapter. They finally charge again. So, and look at page 130. It's one of my favorite quotes in the book. Page 123, second paragraph. He himself felt, this is the second charge. They had retreated, now they're charging again. Look at this. He himself felt the daring spirit of a savage religion mad. He was capable of profound sacrifices, a tremendous death. He had no time for dissections, but knew that he thought of bullets only as things that could prevent him from reaching the place of his endeavor. Can you imagine feeling that way about war? You're not worried about death. The bullets, you're not afraid of the bullets killing you. You're afraid of the bullets preventing you from winning. Like the only way, if you're an athlete, the only reason you're not worried about getting hurt. You're worried. Many of you are like this. I think most athletes are like this. The pain of the injury is not and the fear of getting hurt is not what motivates you. It's the fact that if I get hurt, I can't be out on that field. And that's how he feels about bullets. He's not afraid of dying. He said, these bullets would keep me from winning this battle. And I think that's, to me, that's how you want to live life, isn't it? You don't want to avoid problems. This problem is going to keep me from achieving the goal. I'm not going to be afraid of the problem. I just got to get through it. So keeping my eye on the goals. I think that's really important. And this is when somebody pointed out, was it in here? I don't know, but somebody pointed out, I think it was in here, so I don't know who said it, but no, it was actually Noah, the other class. He said that here at the end of the book, they finally for the first time see the enemy. From the beginning of the book, first page of the book, the enemy was just these campfires across the river. And they were mad beasts, and they were dragons, and they were crazy people, but he never saw one. But now at the end they get these prisoners, and he actually sees what the enemy looks like. And what do they look like? They look like them. They're just like them. They're young people, young guys from a different part of the country, and they talk to each other. It's really interesting. Now that he's overcome all his fears, he can see what the whole point was. We're fighting guys that are my age. They look just like me. So I think that's interesting. Then chapter 24 is the end of the book, and I just want to point out, again, page 130. How did he overcome the way he treated the the tattered soldier. Even here at the end of the book, he's overcome it. He's been praised as a hero. They actually won a little ground. They took this ground from the enemy. They got some enemy prisoners, and they're marching off, and he's still worried about that tattered soldier. And what did we say is the difference? I think we talked about this. Yesterday, he did two things he didn't like. He ran away, and secondly, he left a tattered soldier. Why is he not worried about running away anymore?
Because he's overcome.
He had a second chance. He overcame that. But why is he still worried about the tattered soldier?
So he won't be able to change that.
There's some things in life you can't change. You get a lot of do-overs, especially in school. We're trying to train you, and I was given that blessing. I love it when people give you a second chance. But there's some things you never get a second chance. You can't undo it. You can't change the relationship. You can't fix it. Whatever it is, you can't go back. It's over. Those are the things that stay with us. And what does he do since life is like that, what do you do with that? What does he do with it?
He acknowledges it, and it's just like, I have to work with this.
Yeah, puts it behind it. That's really important. Remember, the book is about war, but it's also about growing up, and that's what you're going to have to learn to do. I think all of us are going to have to learn, I just got to put it behind me. I can't fix it. I can't make it. I'm just going to, as you said, I've got to live with it. And it's, I've got to just put it behind me. And then look at the next paragraph. He says, with this conviction came a store of assurance. He felt a quiet manhood, non-assertive, but of sturdy and strong blood. He knew that he would no more quail before his gods wherever they should point. He had been, and this is the kind of the culminating statement, he had been to touch the great death and found that after all it was but the great death. He was a man. So ultimately, what do all of us have to do? I mean, every human being has to come to grips with one thing. Ultimately, with this one thing. What is it? What was the one thing for him? He's a soldier. What he had to come to grips with? That. And I could ask you that question. Have you come to grips with it? Somehow we all have to at some point do that. And if that's driving us, and whatever the fear is, we have to face it. And we've got to overcome it somehow. We got to accept it, like you said. We got to either accept it or we've got to defeat it. One of the two things. We can't run away from it. So, the ultimate thing, most people, there are two things people are afraid of. This is crazy. But besides death, what the other thing people are afraid of? They've done this survey like more than once, and it always comes up that it sounds silly, but it's true. Public speaking. That people are as afraid of public speaking, or maybe more so than they are of death. You'd rather die than get up in front of a group of people and talk. I can't remember if we meet tomorrow, do we? I don't think so. So this is our last conversation about it. I would say, before we watch the movie, I would say that looking at Henry's growth, it's not like Huck Finn, which has multiple, I gave you a sheet with 5, and there could have been more, 5 basic topics, and you eventually wrote on 2 of them. But basically there's one topic here, and that is the growth of Henry. And from what to what. And I've done something like this year after year, and I'm always disappointed. I told you, my expectations are pretty high because I've kind of charted out for you, and you've contributed to what does that look like. And we've pointed out all the details and all the quotes, and if you don't mention Jim, I think your paper's going to be kind of weak. Whatever I ask you, Jim, the death of Jim Conklin and some of these other things. So please make sure that you have this chronology in mind, and you've looked. I've also seen papers that the chronology is like people claim he made a decision to go back. He never. It didn't happen. So if you say it, that's going to be an example of misinterpretation, unless you can find something that I've overlooked. That's, as I said, anything you can prove, you're welcome. That's why you have your book every time. And the order. you know, like sometimes they get things out of order. You need to get that clear in your head. You know what, I can't remember, so I don't want to give you some of the wrong order because that would stick in your mind. But there is a certain, the chronology is important. So anyway, this is the Red Badge of Courage. I think it's 1956. There are two things. They claim that there's a narrator and there's dialogue, of course. And most movies don't have a narrator, but occasionally I think the narrator comes. But anyway, a lot of this is directly from the book. Not only are the events, if there's one event at the end that is not, I hope you'll recognize what happens at the end that is not in the book. But most of the book even claim that even the dialogue is directly from the book. So you might even remember some of the dialogue. I'll say one last thing about it. The two main characters in the book are Henry Fleming and Wilson. They are played by two non-actors. I don't know if this was the first movie they've been in, but the two guys that play those two characters are not actors. One is named Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy is Henry Fleming. He's this little guy, boyish face. He is this is the truth, he's the most decorated American soldier in World War II. He won the Congressional Medal of Honor and every other medal you could possibly think of. He joined the Army before he was able to, you know, his age. They kicked, you know, they wouldn't let him, and then he goes back. And so he looks like this little boy. I'm going to show you a little documentary of him at some point. And he has this little boy with his big uniform. And he won more medals than any American soldier in World War II. He plays Henry. The other guy is very interesting, too, the guy that plays Wilson. His name escapes me right now, but they'll show it. He was America's probably most famous journalist in World War II. He wasn't so much a journalist, he was a cartoonist. So he went with the troops to Europe, and he drew cartoons and created characters, and they appeared in American newspapers, and people kind of got to know what it was like to be a GI. So that's Wilson. He's not an actor, but they do a really good job with this. So with that in mind, here is the movie, is what we can see of it. We've got almost an hour. And it's, except for that one scene at the end, everything's accurate. So you're not gonna get some things that aren't in the book.
What's the best place we've had so far?
Bill Maudlin is the cartoonist. The other guy plays Wilson.